Have you ever imagined what it would be like if Ikki hadn't challenged fate by taking Shun's place to train on Death Queen Island? And if Shun became the Phoenix Knight and Ikki became the Andromeda Knight, how would the story of Knights of the Zodiac turn out? Hello, Knights and Amazons. Welcome to the channel. Always wanted to know, in today's video, we're going to open a rift in space-time and explore one of the biggest theories of Knights of the Zodiac. What would have happened if there had been no intervention in the Grodd Foundation's lottery? And what if the sensitive and kind Shun had been sent to hell on Earth to Death Queen Island while the impetuous Ikki went to Andromeda Island? Get ready, because this change would alter not only the brothers' personalities, but also the fate of the entire sanctuary and the awakening of Hades. Let's analyze this alternate timeline with all the technical and mythological details you love. So go ahead and leave your comments with your opinions. And of course, click like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and let's get into this awesome video. Always, who knows? The Phoenix armor is the only one among all 88 protective constellations of Athena that has the ability to completely regenerate itself, even if it's reduced to dust. And to understand this change of user, we need to go back to the beginning of everything. The Grodd Foundation, led by Mitsumasa Kido, which sent 100 orphans to the most dangerous corners of the world. In the original canon, Shun drew Death Queen Island, a place where the survival rate was practically zero. Ikki, moved by brotherly love, switched places with him, going to the volcano and sending Shun to Andromeda Island off the coast of Ethiopia. But in our alternate reality, the drawing is kept. Shun, the child with the purest heart in the world, is thrown into the darkest place on the planet, Death Queen Island, which is located exactly on the equator. It's a volcanic environment where the ground is too hot to walk on barefoot and the air is filled with sulfur. There, the training is supervised by the terrible Guilt, a knight who wears a metal mask to hide his identity, and who firmly believes that hatred is the only real source of power. In Ikki's place, Shun would face Guilt's physical and psychological abuse. However, the dynamic would be different. Shun would try to convert the master through kindness, which would result in even harsher punishments. Esmeralda, Guilt's daughter in the anime, who is a slave in the manga, would be Shun's only ray of light. In the original story, Esmeralda's death at the hands of Guilt was the trigger for Ikki to awaken his hatred. With Shun, the impact would be devastating, upon seeing the only person who loved him die. Due to his weakness in not wanting to fight, Shun's cosmos would undergo a different mutation from Ikki, who used hatred as a shield. Shun could succumb to a much deeper darkness. Remember, Shun is the host of Hades. The extreme suffering on Death Queen Island could hasten the awakening of the soul of the Emperor of the Underworld, turning the Phoenix Knight into an early avatar of destruction. Meanwhile, Ikki would arrive at Andromeda Island. Contrary to what many think, this place is not a paradise. It's a rocky desert where the temperature ranges from 50 degrees during the day to 20 degrees at night. The master here is Albion of Cepheus in the anime, or Didaros of Cepheus in the manga, a silver saint known for his integrity and strength. Ikki would have to learn how to manipulate the chains. For someone with his explosive temperament, the chain defense technique would be a challenge. He would probably try to use the chain in a purely offensive way, ignoring the protective nature of the armor. The final test to obtain the Andromeda armor. It's the ritual of sacrifice where the aspirant is tied to the rocks on the coast, and he must unleash his cosmos before the tide rises and drowns him. For Ikki, this would be easy in terms of power, but difficult emotionally. He would have to accept surrender so that the chain would accept him. In this reality, we would have reversed designs and powers. Let's see how our protagonist would look. First, Shun of Phoenix. The Phoenix armor is legendary. They say that since mythological times, no knight has ever managed to wear it until Ikki arrived. If Shun were to conquer it, under the trauma of Esmeralda's death, his techniques would be the Phoenix Flight, Hoyoku, Tensho. Instead of pure flames, Shun's attack could carry a funeral aura, mixing the power of the Phoenix with the melancholy of his soul and the power of Hades. The Phoenix's Phantom Strike, Phoenix Genmaken. This technique destroys the opponent's mind. Shun, with his sensitivity, would know exactly which trauma to touch in the minds of his enemies, becoming the most feared warrior in the sanctuary. According to Ikki of Andromeda, Ikki, wielding the nebula chains, would be a visual spectacle under Ikki's command. The chain wouldn't wait for the attack. It would be aggressive, instantly going for the enemy's neck like a lightning wave. Ikki would use the chain to torture or quickly immobilize without the hesitation that Shun used to have. Nebula Storm, Nebula Storm. This is Andromeda's most powerful technique, which doesn't use chains, only the flow of cosmos. Ikki, with his explosive power, would turn this storm into a devastating hurricane, capable of pulverizing a knight instantly. And in the canon, Ikki returns as a villain, leading the Black Knights. And in this theory, Shun de Felix would be the initial antagonist. Imagine what it would be like. The Bronze Knights are fighting in the Grodd Foundation Coliseum when black flames fall from the sky. Shun appears. But he's not the sweet boy they remembered. He's cold with a blank stare, wearing the armor that regenerates on its own. The reason is that Shun doesn't just want the Sagittarius gold armor for power. He wants it to destroy the Foundation, Grodd, which he sees as responsible for Esmeralda's death and for his loss of innocence. Or even at this moment, he could be under the influence of Hades' soul. Ikki of Andromeda would be the only one capable of stopping him. We would see an epic battle between Ikki's chains and Shun's flames. Ikki, now more balanced thanks to his training with Albion, would try to bring his brother back to the light, reversing the original role of savior. If Shun returned to normal, the change in the brothers would drastically alter the battles against the Gold Saints. In the original, Shun used the chain to reach Saga through the dimensions in the Gemini Temple. Ikki, with the chain, would do the same, but would probably try to pull the Sanctuary Master with much more violence. The battle against Shaka is Ikki's highlight. If it were Shun as Phoenix facing the man closest to God, the clash would be philosophical. Shaka would notice Hades' presence in Shun much earlier and might even try to seal the Emperor's spirit right there, resulting in a battle of divine proportions. This is the darkest point if Shun is already psychologically broken due to the training on Death Queen Island. The transition to becoming Hades would be much easier for the god of the underworld to take control. There wouldn't be the resistance from Shun's soul that we saw in the Hades saga. The world would plunge into the Great Eclipse much faster, unless Ikki of Andromeda managed to save his brother's soul through Athena's blood. This role reversal shows us that in Saint Seiya, Destiny is an almost unstoppable force. If Ikki hadn't taken Shun's place, we might have had a much more dangerous villain and a much more resilient hero. The dynamic of light and shadow between the two would remain, but the colors of these energies would be reversed. Shun, as Phoenix, would be the perfect example of how extreme kindness, when corrupted by suffering, becomes the deepest darkness. Ikki, as Andromeda, would prove that brute strength, when channeled through discipline and the purpose of protection, becomes Athena's unshakable defense. And you, what do you think? Would Shun be able to keep his sanity on Death Queen Island? Or would he become a master of darkness, much worse than Ikki? And would Ikki look good in pink armor? Or would the Andromeda armor be stained with the blood of his enemies? Leave your opinions in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching this video until the end and see you next time. Burn your cosmos to infinity.